Yeah, my number two's got a lot of similarities. So I'll kind of do this. Well, I'll end up saying some similar things and maybe just a slightly different way. But on this one, I went with this idea that an operations manager, which is something we've talked about a million times, but again, there are truths. There are things that are just the facts. This is how you do it. But I want to make a bigger point. Like, I think the operations manager, the COO, those roles progress, is the single most important hire to get you here.
Yep.
And the operations manager, and then you have an operations manager, and then you even have a head of operations of the whole business. I believe generally the head of operations of the business does more of the running of the business than even the CEO. And I tend to think the COO is the most important person in the business. I mean, clearly the leader, the CEO, the visionary, like bringing in the deals, like critical. It's a partnership between the CEO and the COO, but the COO is imperative. And it, for all of us, it starts with an operations manager. And the reason I bring this up, and we've talked about 100 times, is because the wrong hire, the not getting the right person just means you go slower, because that stuff's all on you, or there are mistakes being made. There's inefficiencies. There's less money available to grow the business. Keeping the wrong person for too long slows down the growth massively. Getting the right person that hire is probably the single biggest unlock in the entire business. I don't think there's any more valuable role that if you get it right, it will be the difference between a business growing quickly or not growing quickly, a business being a nightmare to run versus being a great business to run, a business that attracts great people and keeps great people versus one that doesn't. It's all around this person, this role. And this person eventually, as the business gets bigger, becomes more than a person. It becomes maybe the equivalent of ops managers at different division that run different parts of the business. Then it becomes that COO type person. And so this is the hire. And if you don't make it, you make the wrong one, you keep the wrong person, you try to fill this while you're also doing everything else, your business will go way slower. And the way it manifests itself is you feel stuck for way longer. So this is the unlock. It's the single most important hire. The reason it doesn't get made a lot of the times is because it means that you have, your income has been growing. Oh no, got to hire this expensive guy. Your income's going to take a dip. And a lot of people don't want to take that dip. Totally get it. Or they're like, well, I'll hire a kind of okay, kind of good, not much experienced guy, so my income won't take that much of a dip. And you just pay the price in a different way. It's like, so at some point, you've got to this is a line in the sand kind of hire. This is I'm either going for it or I'm not going for it in my mind moment in the business. And the go for it is, I'm going to eat this money. I'm going to spend it. I'm going to spend up to get the right person. And if I make the wrong decision, they're gone fast because it will hurt me bad financially. And I'm going to find the next one. And you get this right. And if you get it right, the business works. If you get it wrong, businesses generally don't grow. You can get to millions. It's a lousy business. So this one's a big one. I got a few more things to say on that, but anything you'd offer up on that thought there?
Yeah, I think even a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the location I'm starting in Texas, like when you asked, like, what's the one thing that could happen that could knock it out? It's like, my operations person doesn't work out.
The only thing that can really derail it is something happening to John.
Yeah.
And
that was.
And if that is the crucible,
that's why I was going to hire him away.
Exactly.
As fast as soon as you get it. That's like my whole strategy.
That's right. Forget Facebook ads.
bonus.
That's right. You're trying to run Facebook ads to attract that talent. Let's go.
Exactly. I figure for like $30,000. If I do this to you twice, you'll just go back to Washington.
At least drive up my cost per lead.
Yeah.
And so, if that is the crucible, kind of like your point, like if you can't find good people, that should be where your focus and your attention and your money is being spent. If that's the thing that's keeping it 1, 2, 3 million, and you're like, I want to get to 10, why are we so unwilling to spend the money, but also B, unwilling to put the work in? I just see consistently people take 3 or 4 applications or a couple interviews. And like when I was finding John, because I knew that was the most important thing, I'm talking about over 100 applications I went through and dozens of interviews. And then once I found the 10, I did more and more with them, like multiple layers. And so identifying that is the constraint. I think for anyone that's listening, it might be in that wilderness of 1, 2, 3 million. You're feeling like, hey, I'm making good profit, but I do understand this is the hire that cuts that profit potentially by 30 or 40% for the next year or two, so I can get to the next level. Is the amount of effort and money that you need to spend on this hire is the unlock. But most people underestimate the amount they'll have to spend on that person and the amount of time and energy that needs to be deployed to that thing. But if it is the constraint, that's where all your time and attention should go.
Yeah. Boy, I couldn't agree more. Now, the inverse of this one is maybe you're an operations person. Like that does exist.
Yeah.
We always talk about the operations manager being the best, but maybe this is your thing. Like this, you're built as a process person. You love optimization. And it's like, well, this is kind of the role I want to do. I'm the best at it. Okay. That means there's a gap. So if you're me, my gap is operations. I can do it. I could do it. I just don't want to do it all the time. I'll just slow us down. It's not what I'm best at. There are people that are absolutely going to be better at me at this role. So if I can partner with an operations manager, now me and that person, we're a great team. I'm the push, gas, marketing, sales, let's go guy. They're the slow it down. Let's make it right. Let's fix it. Let's not blow up the business. Let's not get bad reviews. Let's deliver the quality. I believe in all those things. I agree with them, but I am naturally going to want to push. And so I need that counterbalance. And I describe it this way to say, well, maybe you're my counterbalance in my example. Maybe you're that killer operations person. You love it. Like you just want to constantly improve the process. Those are like, again, the most valuable people. Okay. So then you need to hire your gap. What are you not? Maybe you're not the I love marketing. I love selling. I love doing the deals. I like, motivating the team. I like, there's a whole list of things you don't love doing. So you need to find that person. And this is just like if I hire an ops person, massive amounts of trust gets deployed into that person. They could screw the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Well, they could destroy it all. It's exactly the same on the sales and marketing side. And so you'll feel exactly the same fear. It's like, how do I get the right guy? So you're going to, maybe if you're a high process person and you like perfection and order and systems, you're like, these sales guys, all they do is sell stuff. They sell stuff we can't do. Like you may be a little turned off to this idea of salespeople. But the sales and marketing function is just as important as your function. They need to be paired together. And you need to find your co-equal. You need to find your person. And generally, we've talked about this in the past. I tend to be a little bit of a fan of really great partnerships. Like that's not the point of this, but partnerships, because a great partnership is one guy or gal is an operator and one is the sales and market vision side. Paired together, those teams are amazing. They can be amazing. And and those partnerships make all this stuff come together when the business is tiny versus when it's $4 million. And they just get through stuff so much faster because they had both those people that are very expensive from the very beginning. So I just want to make sure the frame is clear. Much like my two engines, growth and recruiting, we've got two really key engines when it comes to people. One is the sales, marketing, growth side person, the CEO side, and one is the operations side. And the magic is having two really strong people in that area. So which one are you? Find the other person. And hiring both roles, incredibly scary and expensive. But they are, as I said, the line in the sand that once you cross it with the right person, things go and your life gets better. The other thing that I wanted to say, actually, I'll pause there. Anything you'd add about that one?
Nope, go ahead.
All right. The other thing where I felt like there were some similarities in what you said is your number two, and then mine is, I was kind of thinking about these phases that you go through, and you kind of alluded to it. So I kind of think about in the earlier days of the business, you run everything, you answer everything, you do all the work, or you do all the work with your team. Like that is, and you get programmed to live your life that way. Like this is what you do every day. You are the hero. I think you've said it that way, or something, some version of that, Mike. Like you're the guy, and it's all on you, and there's a lot to be proud of. And then the next level transition, I like to think of it as kind of you're transitioning to more of a player coach scenario. Again, this is where I thought what we both had kind of some similarities in our number two. So you're shifting to this role of you're a player and a coach. So player being you're out in the field, you're on the field, you're doing some of the work. But you also have to play the coach. You're the teacher, you're the trainer, you're the encourager, you're a coach. And so you've got to, as quickly as you can, you want to take it from being like playing in the field the majority of the time to spending most of your time doing the coaching work. You still have a somewhat smaller business. Part of being the coach right now is also being a little bit of a manager, of course. I'm lumping them together. But you want as fast as you can get to this place where you're like 80% of the time you're coach, 20% of the time you're player. And the example of when you'd be the player, like you're in the field, is just the emergencies. It's just like as fast as you can get there. It's, in my opinion, this is if you want speed. You can decide how fast you want to do these things. This is the formula for going faster. If you want to get there faster, you have to do this faster. And so the faster you're in a position where you only have to jump in and be the player in the field is when there's an emergency. And then you start to look for like, well, how do I get rid of the emergency so I can be in the field even less? And now I'm living as a coach all the time. And then I think the next jump, and then what will probably happen is for most companies, if you kind of think how this works, you get to being a coach over those in the field the majority of the time, almost 100% of the time. But you're probably now the player in the office. You're the player selling. Like, so then there's the next, you kind of move into the office. You're doing a lot of that. You're doing all the selling. You're doing all the estimating. And you, again, want to go through the same process there. You want to start getting to, okay, how can I start bringing people in, contractors, employees, I contract to work with agencies, whatever the case is, where now you're shifting more and more of even the other side of the business off of you, and you're, as much as you can, becoming more of a coach there, less of a player there. And then the next and the final shift that you'll live the rest of your life is kind of this shift from what we'll call a coach to a leader. And this is very much what you were talking about. Like, even as a coach, you're a leader. Absolutely. But what I mean here is now you're a coach or a leader of leaders. You're developing yourself, and now you're developing your leaders that will be the coach in the field, the operations manager, the office manager, the sales manager, depending on how big you want to take the business. And so it's a frame I like to think about. You start out doing everything, then you shift to just being a coach most of the time to the people in the field, but now you're kind of the player in the office. Then you shift more and more of your duties in the office to being the coach over the team. And then you shift to building the managers, and the managers build the company. And that's when it goes. Like, if you don't build that, the thing never goes fast. You have to eventually build all the people under you, and you're the coach just to the leaders, and the leaders build the company. That's what a company is. Other people build it, not you eventually. Takes a long time to get there, but that's the progression.
One of the things you said in the past too is once a business gets past like around $10 million in revenue, it's almost hard to slow the momentum down. And I think a lot of times I see from taking the revenue dollar amount away at that size, though, typically it's when this occurs. And that is when those mid-level managers have been installed. There's a leadership team. The business can run without that genius that is always there, always able to do everything, and it can just operate and it can continue to grow because that momentum now is not just the owner or the CEO. There's that mid-level management that has been established and can actually drive the business forward.
100%. The magic isn't the 10 million. The magic is what had to be built to get to the 10 million. And the thing that got built is what keeps it going or keeps it growing. 100%.
If you've built a $1 million home service business, but you're struggling to get to the next level at $10 million in annual revenue, I've created a private community just for you. It's called Home Service Boardroom, because what got you to $1 million is all the work, the hustle, the grind, figuring out your leads, your website. But what gets you from $1 million to $10 million is learning the skill of leadership, finding other great talent and managers to work for you. If that's of interest, go check out MikeAndy.com/school or see the link in the description.